Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Colors of Fall, week 1 with my amazing friend and colleague, Dianna
Whatever.
Shyne.
Yeah, it's great to be here, and it's here in Portland. It's like a rainy fall day. The leaves are kind of slooping off the trees, and next week's supposed to be lovely, so we'll get some of those flutters instead of the glops.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, good morning, everybody. It's so great to be with you. And if this is your first time having a workshop week 1 with Dianna Shyne, you're in for a treat. I always say that, and I really, really mean it. Janet says excited for this month's classes. Who doesn't love autumn colors? I don't know. How about you?
Yeah,
What
right.
I
They're
know. What
just
is
so
there not to love?
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, they glow.
So Diana, do you want to go ahead and talk to us a little bit about what you're going to be doing today?
Oh, yeah. I have in my tutorial, I have some ideas based on my palette box and the colors I choose on how to create some basic color palettes for the different seasons. We've, talked extensively at Acrylic University about, just a few simple colors, but I have 12 colors in my palette box I thought I would discuss and show you how you can manipulate mainly your yellows to create some really super color palettes for winter, spring, summer, and then we'll focus on fall. But remember, these aren't recipes. They're just ideas, things you can hook your thoughts around as you start preparing for your own paintings. Um, so that's what the tutorial will be on. A lot about color, a lot about pigments and paint mixing. Don't worry if you don't have those exact colors today. If you like what I do, you can go out and buy some or order some or try out your own.
Fantastic. I'm so looking forward to this, guys. And then real quick before we jump into the video, I just want to go over the calendar for this month.
Yeah.
So today, obviously, we have the workshop with Dianna Shyne. That's what you're here for right now. Yes, this will be available for replay inside the journey. Next week, we have guest artist Hashim Akib. And then on the 17th, we have Discover Your Voice with Charlie Easton.
Oh, man. What a lineup.
I know. This month is loaded. And
Killer.
then on the 24th, we have Connection Circles with Jed at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You should get an email about that and how to register for that. If you somehow missed it, you can email support. And if you are interested in joining our brand new Connection Circles, it's a great way to connect almost face to face. It's on Zoom, but you get to connect with other artists and you get to talk with them about what you're going through, what you're working on. It's just a great way to connect on a better level than just in these live classes. And then, of course, at the end of the month, on the 31st, we have the critiques with Brian Buckrell. So it's going to be a fantastic month, guys. If you're new to Acrylic University,
Amazing.
we're so glad you joined us. And yeah, anything else you want to add, Diana?
Well, I'm just going to give a little plug here. I just finished a series of paintings, 52 little 6-inch by 6-inch paintings of images from my 40 years of journeying around the United States, Canada, China, Europe, Central America. And those images will be what we paint with, along with little stories of my painting excursions through the many years that I've been doing it. And that will be in the miniature collection. That's a separate thing that you buy, but it will be ready in November. It'll be edited and ready to purchase. But it is like my private journal of my painting journey. And what I'm doing is inviting you to come along with me for about 35 years of painting and exploration and fun for 52 weeks, one painting a week for 52 weeks. So that will be something sold separately then. And you don't have to buy it, but I'm just saying I worked all summer on it and it's ready. It'll be ready to go right on Black Friday, right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic, guys. If you want a personal look at Diana's travels over the years, you're not going to want to miss this. I mean, it's amazing talking to her, how many crazy stories she has. And there's always just new ones. Every time we get together, she's like, yeah, I did this. And, she'll just drop it so casually. And anyway, it's going to be a fantastic little course. And If you've been around, you know that we do these miniature challenges, and that's a separate thing from the membership, but you're gonna love it. So
Yeah.
anyway, without further ado from us, let's jump right into the workshop. At the end, in about 2 hours from now, we will have a little bit of a Q&A. So,
Mhm.
all right, let's jump into this.
I'm Dianna Shyne. Welcome to another 2-hour workshop with Acrylic University. This month, all month, we're going to be talking about painting the colors of fall. I love fall with its brilliant contrasts, bountiful harvests, with the beautiful seed heads that promise fresh growth in the spring to come, with their bright leaves, with its warm angled light. Gorgeous inspirational vistas. I love painting the colors of fall. Here are some of my paintings, just a few. I do a lot of fall paintings. I've been painting for over 40 years, so there are so many. It would take all day to put all of them up here. Here's just a few. I love painting those muted season end colors. I love painting the brilliant, fresh, vibrant, new fall colors. And I know most landscape artists love painting the colors of fall as well. Here's some pieces by Brian Buckroll and how differently he utilizes colors than I do. Here are some pieces by Sergei Bongard, famous Russian artist. What a wonderful color harmony and color palette he uses to represent both early and late fall. Here is Western artist and one of my many teachers, William F. Reese, and his depiction of early and late fall. And here are some paintings by my dear friend and fellow artist, Ramona Youngquist. She also loves painting these brilliant, vibrant colors of fall, the warm light and the warm reflected light, all in this beautiful explosion of the season. But before we talk about color, as always, whenever I'm talking about color, I talk about the 4 color basics. If you've heard this a million times, listen to it 1,000,001, or wait and then fast forward through it. But I'm going to talk about these 4 color basics because everything I tell you about the colors of fall is going to be based on these 4 color basics. So hang on, here we go. We'll just power through it. Here they are. They are hue. Hue is a term for just color families. Color, it's an umbrella term that encompasses reds, yellows, blues, oranges, greens, and violets. The 6 colors we need to think about when we're color mixing. The second color basic is value, and that is the relative lightness or darkness of any color. The third color basic is temperature, and that is the visual warmth, like the color of sun and fire, or the visual coolness, like ice and snow and cold water. The visual warmth or coolness of a color. And finally, we have intensity, which is bright, highly saturated, high chroma colors versus lower saturated, low intensity, muted grade colors. Let's unpack this just a little for a few minutes, and then we'll get started on our colors of fall. So hue is a general umbrella term. It starts with the 3 primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. These are colors that when you squeeze them out of the tube, you can't mix a red. You cannot mix a yellow. You cannot mix a blue. That's why it's called the primary colors. All the other colors are mixed from these 3 primaries. And that's what we're going to focus on today is 3 primaries and white. But when you mix any of these 2 together, you get orange, green, or violet. Easy. Here I am with my palette and my palette setup. I'm going to mix these colors in a color wheel. I'm going to mix my orange between my yellow and red. I'm going to mix my green between the blue and yellow. And then I'm going to mix my violet between the red and blue. It's as easy as that. Mixing the colors of the color wheel are just this easy. And when I do this on my palette, it makes room for all the other colors, and it makes figuring out how I got that color really simple, especially in a limited palette. So here are some red hues in this painting. Not just this hue, but all of these hues, all of these aspects of red. They're all considered red, from the most delicate pink to the deepest magenta. They're all considered part of red hues. Here's my grandson playing fake snowballs at Woodland Park Zoo one winter, and everything was under this blue light. So not only do we have blue, but we have the aspects of blue that are under that umbrella called blue, from turquoises to deep midnight blues. They're all there under that umbrella term. But what pigments do we pick out at the store? I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute, but let's go over the next couple color basics. The second color basic, and often is said the most important color basic, is value. That is the darkness or lightness of a color. When I remove the color from these pens, you can see that each color has its own intrinsic value. The yellows were lighter, the purples and blues were darker. It's amazing. So when we look at my 6 hues, my 6 basic color mixing hues, we can see that you can add black to any hue, black or a dark color, and you can darken it to a number 9 value. When you add white to any hue, you can lighten it to a number 1 value. So just as a basic idea, you can lighten anything with white, you can darken anything with black. But I have some more ideas for you in just a minute. You can see that yellow was the one color that is way lighter than all the others, so it is more difficult to get those mid-range yellows without it changing to green or orange or brown. You kind of have to choose which one would be right for your painting. So now I'm going to show you how to change the value of a color. I'm going to put a value scale up here, and in just a minute we'll use it. But first I'm going to show you how to make black, how to darken blue. I added red to the blue. You wouldn't think red would darken it, but just wait a second. Now I'm going to add a touch of yellow to that mixture of red and blue right out of the tube. And what that does, now it's no longer purple or violet, it's black. Black, like out of the paint tube black. Here is my darkest color right there. Now I'm going to fast forward my way through mixing, darkening and lightening my blue. I'm going to use that black color I just mixed as my darkest, my number 9 value. I'm going to add some white here to show you that I'm lightening that blue to a mid value. And now I'm this is going so fast, but you can see I'm adding my dark blue to create levels of blue, layers of darkness down to mid value. There we go. Get that just right. Now I'm adding white to my blue to lighten it. And I can go in values in my blue all the way from pure white to pure black by adding your darks to darken it, and my darks are my blue and my red, or white to lighten it. The third color basic is temperature, and that is the visual warmth or coolness of a color. When we think about color in temperature, we're going to think about the fact that red is on one end of the electromagnetic scale and violet is on the other. Colors don't essentially come in a color wheel. And we're going to just talk about the visual warmth and coolness of a color. So warm colors are everything that has red or yellow in it. And cool colors are everything that contain blue, and in paint, blue or white. But when we bend that electromagnetic spectrum of light into a circle, we get a color wheel that we can use to mix. Just like I mixed the color wheel on my palette a minute ago, we can mix these colors based on mixing pigments of red, yellow, and blue. It's a little bit different than light, than the wavelengths of light. We'll take a look at that in a minute. But you can see everything on one side of the line contains some warmth. Everything on the other side of the line contains some cool. But you can see that even on the same day, under the same light, you can have different warm greens or cool greens, depending on all kinds of different things. We can see in the picture on the left, the plants I'm looking at contain yellow and orange, therefore they're considered warm greens. The plants on the plants on the right have blue and white in them, so they're considered cool greens. Here's our fourth color basic, and it's intensity, and that is the brightness of a color, the brightness or dullness of a color. Any color can be dulled by adding gray to it. Instantly, you've grayed the color. That's another word for it, is grayed or muted or low chroma. Those are all words you can use that when you add a little drop of gray to your color, you can gray it, you can drop its intensity. There are some other ways to drop a color's saturation or intensity or chroma. These bands were all made from this top strip. I just took my saturation knob and sent it over to drop the intensity on the computer. The first one is called saturated, high chroma. The other is low saturated or low chroma. And the third one is called unsaturated, no chroma, or black and white. Here's how I like to lower the intensity of a color. Here's a little clip I took out of a painting I did. I can add white to reduce the intensity of the color. Take a look. Here I added some white to that color and I lightened it and reduced its intensity. White will do that. I can take my color and add black to it, and black will reduce the intensity, but it will darken it. Here's a third way. I can take my color, look straight across the color wheel at what's exactly opposite. I'm going to take that magenta and I'm going to lighten it with white until it's the same value as my color. Add it, and notice I've dropped the intensity without changing the value. It's just a lower intensity. It's not as bright a green. By adding magenta to it, I haven't changed its value. I've changed its intensity. Here's an example of hue, value, temperature, and intensity. I'm going to simplify this image, and I want you to notice something. I thought these were bright red because my mindset says fall colors are bright red, but they're not bright. They're in the shadow. So let's look at some of these types of red. First, we have that one right in the middle here, bright, intense, really saturated red. Now down here at the base, we have a cool, dark red. Over here, we have a mid-value warm red. Up here, right there, we have a cool, light red. So red is the hue, cool is the temperature, light is the value. Over here, we have a mid-value dull red, low intensity. Take a look at that low intensity. It's almost brown, but it still lives in that red family. And up here, dark red. Dark, cool, dull, red. How many more am I going to do? Now I'll add back the detail and you can see dark, cool red, bright, intense red, mid-value red. They all are different reds from that red family, but they have a different temperature, value, or intensity, or a combination of those. So as we start mixing colors, we're going to be thinking in terms of our 4 color basics instead of trying to make leaves, because sometimes making leaves just isn't possible. You have to think in color terms. So here's a basic idea of our limited palette list. We have cadmium yellow light, primary red, ultramarine blue, and phthalo blue green shade. We use this a lot in our color mixtures because it simplifies the purchasing process. It simplifies the mixing process. But first, I'm going to show you how my palette is set up, because I set up my palette to take advantage of those 4 color basics. To show you how I do that, first I showed you how I mix in a color wheel. That's step 1. Second, I'm going to show you this. Blue and white are cool colors. They're the cool paints. And I put them at the top of my palette. Here they are. I can cool any color at all by using blue or white, or mixing a combination of blue and white. Yellow and red are warm colors, and I place them at the bottom corners of my palette. And I can warm any color at all by using yellow or red, or a mixture of yellow and red. That's that simple. Yellow and white are light pigments, and I put them along the side of my palette. There on the right-hand corners of my palette. You can lighten any color at all by adding white or yellow, or a combination of white and yellow. Can you guess what's coming next? Red and blue are my dark pigments. They're very dark. Red doesn't seem that dark, but it really is. They're placed on the left corners of my palette, and you can darken any color at all by adding blue or red, or a combination of blue and red. It's that easy. That is why I set up my palette this way, so that I can mix in a color wheel, and so that I have access to warms and cools, darks and lights. Here are the colors that I choose from. This is my palette of colors, and I'll show you which ones I use. You don't have to use these exact ones, but I'll tell you what I have on here and why. Here are my reds. I have quinacridone primary magenta, or it's also called primary red, PV19. It is cool. It's a cool red, and it is bright. I also have naphthol red light. It is warm and bright. And I also keep a quinacridone burnt orange. And it's hard to find these days with that name on it, but it is a warm, low intensity, orangey, burnt red. Some people use burnt sienna. There's another color, I forget the name of it now. There's transparent red iron oxide. You can use any of those to replace it, but that is my red that is less intensity. So I have a warm red, a cool red, and a low intensity red. Here are my blues. First, there is ultramarine blue, which leans red. When you add white to it, it looks a little violet. My anthraquinine blue tends towards a lower intensity, especially when you mix other colors in it. It's very dark, so you can mix incredibly dark colors with it. It is cool, and it tends to be like the coolest blue I can get on my palette. Phthalo blue green shade tends towards turquoise. It leans a little yellow, and it is very bright. It is one of the brightest pigments on my palette. So I have a greenish blue bright, and I also hardly ever use cerulean blue anymore, but cerulean blue chromium hue goes very dull and low intensity when you add white to it. Here are my yellows. Cadmium yellow light. I also I use Golden's brand Hansa Yellow Opaque instead of cadmium yellow light. Sometimes it's just a choice. I also have on my palette Derylite yellow. You can substitute that with cadmium yellow deep. It is warm and it is bright. When you compare the two yellows, yellow is always a warm color, but when you compare the two yellows, you can see that the cadmium yellow light is a little bit cooler than the Derylite yellow. One looks more like sunshine and one looks more like cool daffodils. It's a visual thing. It doesn't have anything to do with anything except it's a visual thing. And finally, in my palette, I have yellow oxide. It is cool, leans towards green, so it seems to have some blue in it somewhere, and it's a lower intensity. It looks more like beige than the other two colors. So I have representatives in my red hues of warm and cool, high intensity, and low intensity. The reason I have this will become apparent right now. Here are the yellows from my favorite color box. Yellows, when we're talking about seasons, are the powerhouse of your palette, and I'll show you why. We're going to figure out how to utilize our yellows to create really easy color mixtures that will help you make the colors of the seasons. Derylite yellow is, the hue is yellow, the value is light, the temperature is warm, the intensity is bright. Yellow oxide is yellow hue, it is a mid-light. It's a cool yellow, and it is muted or dull. And cadmium yellow light, or Hansa yellow opaque, the hue is yellow, the value is light, the temperature is cool compared to the derylite yellow, and the intensity is bright. Let's take a look at these images. I'll put 3 images up here and show you how those yellows can change the idea, the very idea of the season. First of all, I have this fall picture right here, and I'm going to just overlay it across the derylite yellow, the yellow oxide, and the cadmium yellow light. And we can see pretty clearly that we could mix these oranges and greens from our derylite yellow. Here's the next one, a late fall scene. And I'm going to put it across the derylite, the yellow oxide, and the cadmium yellow light. And you can see almost instantly that those oranges and greens were mixed from yellow oxide. You can visually see it in the ingredients there. And finally, I have this spring picture of a cow. And when I lay it against the derylite yellow, the yellow oxide, and the cadmium yellow light, we can see that the greens in this image were created most likely from cadmium yellow light. We'll do it again. Here I have some things that are not seasons, but also show you how these yellows can be utilized in your favor. Number one, I have these warm Tuscan buildings in cool, rainy weather light, and we can see that the sides of these buildings probably have yellow oxide in them. Now we're looking at the side of a building in Tuscany with warm, bright light on it, afternoon light. And you can see that the oranges and yellows in this Tuscan building probably have some drops of derylite yellow in them, in their mixture. And finally, we have this spring field with yellow flowers, and we can really see how the greens and yellows probably came from cadmium yellow light. Here's our derylite yellow as a possible mixture for the gold and green on these fall trees. Our Hansa or cadmium yellow light as the possible mixture for the greens in the picture above and the daffodils below. And our yellow oxide showing us how we might mix oranges for this winter scene. The oranges and the golds in this winter scene really look like they were created from yellow oxide. In winter, there are some basic aspects about snowy winter that we could, some generalizations. Not everything is the same. Some winter days are brilliant, filled with beautiful, bright, intense color. But for the most part, in general, winter scenes are cool. They have a low chroma. They're muted with a low saturation. So when we think of cool colors, muted and low saturation, the yellow that comes into mind is yellow oxide. And when we look at that yellow oxide next to these photographs, we can imagine how this orange was created, how these soft gray browns were created, how the soft grays and gray browns in the branches were created with yellow oxide. Oh, how easy that is. Look more carefully. We can actually see the connection, the family connection there between yellow oxide and those colors. When we think of spring, we generalize in spring colors. We're thinking of vivid hues, really bright, and we think of cools. Some ideas I have about that. If we take our Hansa yellow light, which we already said was the cooler of the yellows, it's still warm compared to blue, green, all those other colors. It's still a warm color. However, Hansa yellow light or cadmium yellow light were the cooler choice of those colors. And we can see it's the color of the daffodils. And it's the color of those yellow tulips. It's bright. Now I'm going to show you a little trick that I do. Creating a green chart. If you saw my class on greens, I think it was last spring, you'll know I make a huge chart using all my yellows and all the blues from that case that I have, and I create a great big chart. But I'm going to show you how it's done really quickly here. I'm going to do phthalo blue green shade, and I'm going to use cadmium yellow light here. And this, I'm making us a little chart with 6 squares in it. And the middle upper square is going to be mid-green. Something that looks like not light, not dark. Here on the other side of it, on the left-hand side, I'm mixing more yellow. So I have a yellow-green using the same phthalo blue green shade. And then on the far side, I've added more blue. So I have a dark green, a dark blue green. So now, just with phthalo and yellow, I have these 3 quite different aspects of green, a yellow green and a blue green. Now on the square below, I'm adding white to the color above to lower the intensity, possibly. Sometimes adding white actually seems to brighten it up. And to show you what it looks like with white in it, to drop the value to a lighter value. Oh, yeah, I used up that green, so I'll mix some more and then add white to it. Yep, there we go. Now, when I'm adding white, we can see these 6 different aspects of titanium white, phthalo green, and Hansa yellow light. So I've done that with my 3 yellows and just 2 of those 4 blues. Let's not overcomplicate this. I'm just mixing ultramarine blue. Here you can see part of my chart. I've mixed ultramarine blue with yellow oxide. I've mixed yellow oxide with phthalo. I've mixed diarylide yellow with ultramarine blue. And I've mixed diarylide yellow with phthalo. Here I've mixed Hansa yellow light with ultramarine blue and Hansa yellow light with phthalo green blue shade. Now you can see how many colors are available and all the incremental pieces in between when you just have 2 blues, 3 yellows to choose from. And now I'm going to show you how to utilize this chart to simplify your color choices. This seems like I just made it much more complicated. If you spend some time to create this chart of your own, you'll have a really great resource for yourself. So here I'm taking the ultramarine blue with the Hansa yellow, and I'm moving it across the picture of these tulips. And we can see that the dark in the greens, the green that is creating the dark green of the tulip greens, is this ultramarine blue and yellow in its darkest form. So here would be a possible palette of colors that I would use for this painting. It isn't the only one, that there's no right and wrong here. You get to choose, but I would probably choose ultramarine blue, Hansa yellow opaque, and quinacridone primary magenta. Why? Because look at how the blue almost completely matches the color of the sky. And the darker part of that blue almost completely matches the color of the mountain. The quinacridone primary magenta, when mixed with white, a little bit of white, is almost a dead-on ringer match for those beautiful pinky red tulips. And we know that the yellow, when mixed with our ultramarine blue, makes perfect greens for this image. And it's also a perfect match to those yellow tulips in the background. 3 colors and white, and you have a spring palette. Here's an image from summer. And we generally think of summer as having strong value differences, being very warm, being bright. So when I think of a color that is both warm and bright, I'm thinking of Darylite yellow. Let's look and see how Darylite yellow matches up with this image. I'm just going to move the Darylite yellow around. And now I'm going to pick Darylite yellow with phthalo blue green shade, because phthalo blue green shade is also warm and bright. So when I move that color mixture that I mixed up, the yellow green, the green, the blue green, and move it around on here, I can see that my greens look very close to these on my color mixture. When I move it across these greens below, I can see it's almost a dead ringer for that. I don't have to match the colors on a photograph because photographs often change and dull the colors. But in this case, I'd say 2 of my 4 color choices are going to be Darylite yellow, phthalo blue, green shade. Those would be 2 color choices that I would make. And so my possible palette would be titanium white, Darylite yellow, phthalo blue green shade. And now I'm looking at the reds, the brightest reds here, and I'm saying, oh, look at this. That naphthol red or cadmium red light is almost a dead ringer for those red umbrellas. So I have 4 pigments that I could recreate this painting with very easily. But we're talking about the colors of fall. Let's get into it. Here's an image from early fall, dahlias blooming in late evening sunlight. And I am going to choose this warm, bright color. Even though I see some greener notes in these yellow dahlias, I'm looking at the main body of these yellow dahlias and saying, making that judgment call, Darylite yellow. When I move these 2 color choices up, the ultramarine blue with Darylite yellow and the phthalo blue green shade with Darylite yellow, and move them around, I can see that these colors are just slightly more muted and they play better with the bright colors that are on top of them than the brilliant greens that are created with phthalo blue. So in this case, I'm going to choose ultramarine blue and Darylite yellow. That would be my possible choice for this image. Here are some trees in early fall, and they are brilliant. And I'm going to look at this Darylite yellow because when we think of fall, early fall, when the leaves are starting to turn, we think of bright, warm, and intense colors. So I'm looking at this Darylite yellow as a bright, warm, intense yellow, thinking of those color basics. And I'm going to look at the colors in these leaves and think, yes, I could actually recreate these colors with Darylite yellow. I might want a different yellow for these ones over here, right there. I might want my cadmium yellow light, but I know that if I add white to this, I could probably also get those colors. Here's a blue option, phthalo blue green shade. It's almost exactly the same color as the sky. So there's an idea for my blue. Here's what the greens would look like. Take a look at these dark greens in here, in the under layers. That phthalo blue green shade and Darylite look really, really close to these deep dark greens. The other picture doesn't even have greens, so I don't even need to worry about it. But when we're looking at the greens, we're thinking about how this might be a great answer, a tool for choosing the colors, that limited palette on our palette. So to help you make better decisions and better color choices, easier color choices, let's look at how these yellows create oranges. So I have my Darylite yellow at the top, and I'm adding white to it to lighten it. We'll make a range from yellow to white, from the tube color yellow down to as light as we can go. Just adding white. And then I'm going to add some red. This is my quinacridone primary magenta. I'm not using all three reds. We could, and that would be a whole nother color chart, which I have made in the past. But right now we're just looking at this quinacridone primary magenta. It's a really easy red to use. It comes with different names for different brands, so don't worry about it. I'm mixing the pure yellow and the pure red together. Ooh, look at that. Hansa Yellow Opaque makes the brightest, really bright oranges. So does Diarylite Yellow, just a little bit different. But when we look at this yellow oxide, look at these beautiful browny oranges, beigey oranges. So we can see that if we were working at the edge of autumn, like late autumn, once the leaves have fallen, that might be a great color choice. Let's look at these two sets of trees for our color choices. Now that we've seen oranges being created, and I'm looking at my Darylite Yellow, and yeah, it still looks like that's the correct color choice. And I'm looking at my phthalo blue-green shade with the Darylite Yellow because I can see up here in the sky, that to me looks very phthalo. It looks a lot like this color right here. My primary red, my PV19, look at this color right here. Doesn't that correlate really beautifully over here? And my Darylite Yellow. Now, I'm thinking also we might be able to exchange naphthol red light or cadmium red light for that, because we would have even more brilliance of color. But right now I'm just looking at these colors as a possible idea for the color harmony of this. When I overlay the two colors, I can see that it does make a really brilliant, beautiful orange. That's what I want for this painting. When I look at the greens, I'm seeing that they are just really well expressed with this phthalo blue and Darylite combination. I'm thinking phthalo blue-green shade, Darylite Yellow, quinacridone primary magenta, and white. And we've got the 4 basic pigments for this palette. You know, there is no rules here. If you have a basic primary palette with a red, a yellow, a blue, you can always add other colors. You can you throw in a purple, throw in something else. It doesn't matter. But if you start with this basic triad of colors, it's really hard to go wrong. So when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, what would be good? And when we move the yellow oxide color down, we can see it's almost a dead ringer. I could paint this with just yellow oxide and white, all these grasses, and I would have a beautiful interpretation of these grasses. We can see that color is hiding up in the branches of the trees. Here's another late fall image. It is muted. When we think of late fall, muted, low chroma, everything has been reduced. So I'm moving my yellow oxide and my ultramarine up into this picture in the corner, and look at the greens almost perfectly match. And there are so many colors. If I were to just lighten these out a little bit more, they would perfectly match ultramarine and yellow oxide. In the trees that are finishing up their year, and in the evergreen trees, I'm seeing too yellow oxide and ultramarine. Here are 2 of my favorite paintings by Sergei Bongard, both one in early fall and one in later fall. And we can see that early fall, you can really see the influence of whatever he had. He was an oil painter, and he was probably using cadmium yellow deep for those deep oranges, but you can always substitute if you want. And take a look at his late fall and how this yellow oxide almost perfectly mirrors the yellows in his field. I've put this worksheet in with the reference photo for you to download and to print up, and I'm going to show you how to use it in just a minute when we start our demo. So let's start. Let's paint. Let's start our demo, but before I really begin on the painting, I want to show you how to use this chart that you can download. Here's a color wheel, a little thing of pigments used, the name of the painting. I'm going to call this Autumn Drive. Not a very inspired name for a painting, but it is what it is. So, pigments used. I put on my palette titanium white. I'll finish writing these in a minute. Derylite yellow. This one is Derylite yellow, primary magenta, and phthalo blue green shade. I picked phthalo blue green shade because it seemed to be the bright blue I needed. I'm going to do a little color study right here. So first of all, I'm going to mix a yellow green. Ooh, that's bright. With my Derylite yellow and my phthalo. I kind of like that though. And so the regular green would be about right there. And the blue green would be about right here. I like that. Now my phthalo, when I mix it with quinacridone, primary magenta or primary red, looks kind of like this. It's really, the phthalo is very strong. I have to add a lot of red to it to get a violet color. But I'm thinking of the shadows in this piece as that. And then I have a lot of reds and oranges. And that's like the main color here, the main color that you see throughout. So I'm going to make some orange. Ooh, that's pretty. Now yellow orange. I like that. And then a red orange. Beautiful. I love these colors right here. I love this color for the green. I may add a touch of orange to it just to kind of see the colors changing. I'm going to make a little bit of a red violet here for some of the deep colors in the shadows, and a blue violet up here that I'm going to add a touch yellow to so it goes black for some of the deepest, darkest shadows. Now I'm going to make a richer purple, and I'm going to try out these colors. I'm loving them in my color wheel. Let me try them out and see how I like them on my painting. More red. All right, I'm going to try them out. Just making a little tiny color study here. This is a piece of printer paper, nothing exciting. So I'm seeing some green. I'm not trying to paint the painting here. What I'm trying to do is figure out what I like and what I don't like. Here's that some dark. I see a purple shadow in the driveway. Purple shadow. Some deep red violet shadows in the trees. Some red orange colors in the trees. I'm seeing some yellow orange. I might add a drop of white to that. I'm seeing some yellow, lots of light pouring in through here. Yellow orange, orange orange. A deep red, almost a red violet color for that little building. The sky is so delicate. I may do this phthalo green sky right here. That's just the phthalo blue with a little bit of yellow in it. I like these colors together. I'm seeing the colors and I like them. So here's what I'm going to do in my color wheel. I'm going to put my phthalo blue-green shade. I'm speeding up filling in this color wheel just so that it won't be too incredibly boring. I think that we've all filled in color wheels before, and if not, this is a good exercise. But just keep putting these 3 colors and how they are mixed into this wheel, and finding your way around it will really help you understand how these colors mix together. The combination of filling out the color wheel and doing that little 2-inch square study really helps me see how the colors are formed and how they interact with each other. This is a great way to see, just adding little bits of white or adding little changes of color, making my way down the wheel. I'm not caring if this is just like everyone else's color wheel. This is a resource and a reference for me and me alone, not for a teacher, not for someone who's going to judge it, but just a way for me to put it in my files so I know what I have and what I've already created for next time. I'm putting all 3 colors together in the center of this color wheel to see what kind of browns or grays can be mixed. And just looking at the beige here as I mix it up, what can be done? Once I feel like I've finished this area, I'm going to write in the names of the colors that I've used so I won't forget. And this whole sheet gets put in my notebook files for later. So this is how I would fill that out. If I wanted to try out some other colors, I just print up a new one and try out a whole palette of different colors. Now I can put this in a clear plastic sleeve, stick it in my notebook, and I have this color harmony here based on this triad of colors, and I can see at a glance what it will look like and whether it will work for the painting I'm thinking of next. That way I'm not reinventing the wheel. I like these colors though. I like them for fall. That Derylite yellow is that beautiful, beautiful fall color that I see in my reference photo. So I'm going to put my color chart and my reference photo to the side and get a little pencil. I'm just going to mark real lightly where I want this little garage thing, because it's going to go right in the focal point area. And there's a bit of a house off to the side. You can kind of see it back there, kind of not. I love this big old tree coming up through here. I'm just going to put, block in where the leaves come from this big tree, where this big opening is between the trees. There's a solitary branch sticking out in the photo. I'm not putting that in, but I do like the overhang of these. I do like this, and these brilliant yellows, yellow oranges, the trees through here. This is just me making notes with a pencil. It's not a drawing. It's just, it is note taking. And I want to see what the shapes are like in this note taking. Dark, dark. So it's an L-shaped composition with dark. So what I'm going to do is get out my big 2-inch wash brush. And I think I'm going to get some clean water. Here you go, it's up here. And some orange. And I'm going to make some really liquidy orange color. and just, oh, there's a hair on there. Oh, no, that's a pencil mark. Okay, that's good. That's fine. And I got a fingerprint here. It'll all be covered shortly. So I've got this covered with an underwash. You can tone your canvas if you want. I prefer to do this underwash because I'm going to take my paper towel and just gently pull out where I want my lightest lights. This orange is going to represent my mid values. I'm going to lift where my lights are going. These trees are light around the edges, so down they go. And then I'm going to take this dark purple and add some, here we go, add some light to it. Oh, that turned green because I had orange in my brush. Just add some water to it. Here we go. And I'm going to mark in where I want my darks. Mid values. Oh, that's way too dark. There's a light bit here that I'll leave out. Dark shadows. Dark. Dark back here. It gets lighter into mid value as it rises. And then this side, I'm going to come in with some negative shape painting. So basically this idea is just telling me where these darks are going. Everything else is going to get a good covering of paint. There's a couple little beams of sunlight running across this road area that I would like to get, at least to mark in where I think they would go. And my paper towel is very imprecise, which is great. I don't want it to be precise. I want to really just use this as a block, just a template for my values. A blocked in template of values, that's all it is. It isn't even representing the color on here. Now I'm going to stop my film and dry this so we can get right into the painting. So now you can see my weird value plan here. It's not that great, but I'll work on it because I have colors here. I'm going to mix some more of that light green, just a little bit more. I can see that I could use more on my palette. So a bunch more of this yellow. There's some light green, and I can see as I'm looking at my image, there's a tiny touch of orange in it, which makes it really, really warm. And I'm just going to put it on here. Just lay it in. Lay in that light green. There's a little bit of a darker green. Put some orange in it too. Now I'm not really going to worry too much. It's just a box with a box and a triangle. So I'm not going to worry too much about the shape of this barn thing. What I'm going to worry about mostly is getting my values and my colors in. Next, I'm going to use my red violet and block in the darks behind the shadow. I'm blocking in the shadowy area darks behind these light forms. And I'm just using it's not even a color shaper. This is a spatula I bought at the dollar store. And I am popping in these colors. Here is that beautiful blue violet that I'm just gonna put on it's a little warmer. I'm gonna put it down here in the driveway and in the bark of the tree, and some of it's going back behind the little house here, back here. Now remember, I'm going to come back in with my negative shape painting and get these branches And if they're dry by that time, I can take some charcoal and mark on them if I want to. But I'm just trying to feel out where the branches are going to go, in my mind, where I'd like them to be. And get this shadow color all in here, because then I'm going to start layering over lights. There's a very dark green. And I'm going to put orange in that too, to make it not quite so brilliant. There, I dropped the brilliance of that color. We get that dark green in here. Oh yeah, right up here. Once I get a basic block in, I'm going to leave this. I'm going to get my, going to pop that sky in. I am working neither from the back to the front or front to the back. I am just blocking in big shapes, because a painting is basically that. It's shapes. It isn't about background and foreground until you apply the ideas that make it background and foreground. It's just shapes. Simple as that. I'm warming this up with a little yellow as I drop it down, and I am going to overlay. I'm coming back in here with negative shapes later, and I'm going to overlay some leaves over it in a minute. Get it bluer. The higher it goes up, a little bit darker blue, but not super dark, and more orangey as it comes down here. Can you believe what it looks like? Because that's what the values did. The values just made this thing pop. I'm loving that. Now there is a lot of reflected light, really warm reflected light coming through those leaves, landing on this building. It's amazing, because the building, I remember taking the picture, this barn thingy was white. And the fact is, it looks peachy pink because the light is reflecting down through those warm layers of leaves, bouncing up off the road. It's even yellower than that. It's got more gold color in it. Not worried about the door or the door color just yet, or even the shape of the roof. I'll come back and get that in a minute. There's some more peachy pink colors back there in the shadow. Wow. This would be the door, this darker magenta color. I may brighten it just a bit. Again, I'm not worried about the shape just yet. I'll come back in for the shape. Get that golden swatch of sunlight. Here we go. Here. There's a little bit of green in that. I don't want green in it. Golden swatch of sunlight right there. These beautiful light, warm yellows as they climb. These beautiful light, warm orange colors as they climb into the sky. Just put some little scrapes through there that will dissolve later on. I want that texture. Now I'm going to take some of this orange. If I don't think this is orange enough, I can put something with blue next to it. If that isn't enough color, I can go for a cadmium orange. So I've got a smaller brush. It's a number 4 flat. And I'm going to just start creating layers of paint with my number 4 flat. I'm looking at where they go in my photo and creating these layers of color. They're deep red, magenta, then deep red, then they get oranger, then they get almost this soft pinky orange color as they get out towards the sky. And here we've got dark green. It moves into a lighter green, which I'm adding orange to. So I feel it needs it. And that goes into a orange, greeny, a darker greeny orange. I'm moving the tree over because I don't like to put trees that are cut in half on my painting. And finding a place for this, where this green orange goes in this mess of foliage. This lighter green, yellow green is coming up. Medium yellow green. There is a spot right in here where it's kind of a browny color, and that's like bare branches starting to happen. This deeper magenta, then red, then orange. Yes, I'm seeing it. It's going up. What I want to do in the tree is to avoid hard edges. Trees flicker in the light, the leaves move, things come and go. The camera stops things in their tracks. And that is no good. And that's, you know, when something is stopped in its tracks, when something that moves stops moving, people say, well, that's realism, and I disagree. Realism is what we see out of our eyes. We've been trained and fooled by people who take photographs, that photographs are real, but they don't see how the human eye sees. They see how this little piece of equipment sees. Our eyes are much more complex than that, and we see a lot of different stuff. We see a lot of different things going on. Movement. We see, our eyes are constantly balancing between shadow and light, something a camera isn't very good at. So we can paint this the way our eye sees, move away from the way the camera sees. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it makes sense to me. I want a little bit more. I like the color that the phthalo and the red make. I just want it a little bit lighter and a little bit warmer, richer in places. Go back to this darker color, and I'm going to start putting in these marks. First of all, they'll be where the sunlight is going to come across. I'm putting a red line. Then I'll make an orange line and then yellow. So it's coming. It'll come. Here we go. Whew. There are tree trunks moving up through this space. And here it's way lighter. That the house, the building back here, is a little bit of sunlight hitting the white, and this white, believe it or not, is what this barn is. That's when light hits it. Kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. I absolutely love the color of it in the shadow. There are some branches of green that come across and kind of bury it into the landscape, which I really like. And then the thing that makes it look like it's in shadow is that there's really light yellows behind it. I like that I did that little color study it makes me really happy that I made it, because I feel confident to just press forward with these colors and see what they do. And every time I add white to some of it, every time I add yellow or orange to some of it, it changes in nature a little bit. And I kind of love that. I love that I have such a huge variety to go on. Loving it. I'm loving this process, and I remember this day. I was out by myself just driving around, driving up and down little lanes and photographing different aspects of the autumn light. And I came across this little driveway and this outbuilding, and I drove right in so I could take the picture, and, you know, was hoping that nobody was cranky with me for doing that. But I just had to get this picture of this barn, or this garage anyway. And what might be fun would be to open this door crack and let some light through. We'll see how that works. So I need to grab up more paint on my brush, a thicker glob, as I work my way up through here and through these negative shapes. This deep red orange color I love up in the sky area here. The sky is still a little wet, but it's kind of okay. I feel like to get some of the sky color in there, because I can come back and get more of that dark. And then this branch got covered up. There's some green in it, there's yellows in it, and I'm covering up the sky, and I'm going to come back and bring the sky back over it, because I really love the way the leaves trickle down through the light up here, and I want to really find a way to express that. Light flickering, leaves dancing. Sunlight coming through different little spots. When I'm done with this painting, if I have time, I'd like to do another small one of this using the winter palette and show you, just for fun, what would happen if we just changed pigments. So that might be coming up. I'll see what my time frame is. But I have a feeling that would be really super fun and instructive to see how that works. Little orange in that, deep down dark color, some purple. I'm seeing purples in the shadows, so they could go in the shadows of the trees as well. Deep dark color. Okay, now I'm going to take out my color shaper and I'm going to make some ways that these colors are more textural together. You know, if I hate this color, if I find out that I'm really struggling with a color like this red or this yellow, there's no reason to stay with it if it's not doing what I want it to do. Or just get a clean palette, get a clean worksheet, try another set of colors. It's all part of the fun of painting, which is experimenting, trying things out. I think a lot of people kind of base their self-esteem on whether each and every painting comes out. And that's not helpful when you're learning, because learning, growing, experimenting is joyous if you just let it happen. It is absolutely joyful. Think of a little kid learning to build blocks, and the block tower goes up, crash, it falls down. They giggle, they laugh. Their self-esteem is not wounded. They just put the thing back up and try again. It's that easy. And over and over and over and over and over about a million, zillion times. And then the crashing of it becomes part of the fun. Giggle, giggle. And you can really see how the child is learning about weights and balances and gravity without even trying. They just are doing it because they're having fun. Wouldn't that be great if we could have fun painting like that, where every time the painting crashed down and was horribly, horribly bad, we just laughed and set up another one, gessoed over this one, and went on, you know, just move forward. Just keep going. Don't worry about it. It's really hard to do. We're conditioned to think that if we're not producing, then there's something wrong with us. And when it comes to creativity, that is not correct. If we are not creating, there's something wrong with us, something broken in us. And the creative act doesn't necessarily have good outcomes because you're working on it. Because we're thinking it through. We're designing something. We're taking some risks. And in doing so, things can, things can fail with risk taking. But nothing will ever get better if you don't take some risks. That's the issue there. Nothing's going to improve if you don't take a few risks. It's browner. This browny green I came up with, this just seems like the right color for these fallen leaves and edges. You hear me sighing. I'm sighing with contentment. This is really fun. Am I happy with the painting? Nah, not yet. But I don't have to be yet. It's just where I'd like to lead this painting, where I'd like to bring it to. The level of completion, the level of playfulness in it, the level of joy. To me, fall is just a joyful, exuberant last dance before winter. I love it. And to express that joyfulness would be really great. I would love to be able to do that. Really bright back here behind the garage. To make the garage work, to make it look like those are, it's actually in shadow, we have to have some pretty good light near it. And once that light is in place, the garage looks shadowed. Ooh, things are happening that I'm liking. So I'm bringing some light into these areas. I want to work on the negative shapes in this tree a little more. I want to bring some of these greens a little bit darker, a little bit orangier. Some of these greens need to work their way up through. And I had a lot of paint on this palette, and guess what? I'm running out of paint. So I'll probably stop my camera again and load up with some more paint. But first I'm going to use what paints I have to create some kind of fun marks here. Okay, I'm going to stop for just a second here and put out some more paint. Let things set up just a little bit. I let the painting sit and dry, and I've added some more colors. I might not need this much for the end of the painting, but I might. So now I have an idea of how to resolve some of the areas here, how to make it look a little less messy, if you will. I want to start with this little bit of sunlight coming through here. I love this. I might drag paint through because I like the feel of dragged paint for things like sunlight. This golden light, I'd like a few specks of this golden light popping through places. So you can really tell that this is in shadow. This is a big mess. Everything's a big mess. But it's okay. I'm going to demessify it. This is this big blob here came off a different palette, and it is simply these two colors I was playing with in a palette before, so I just stuck it on here. It's my Darylite yellow and my primary magenta. And it was on another palette, and it's making a really nice orange color that I'd like to add to this conversation of color here. Now that this is dry, I can drag paint across. I can just make things more interesting. This is still wet. I left it overnight, and you can see it's still wet, and the reason is because I put the lid on nice and tight. This is my Masterson Stay Wet palette. Let's make a dark lavendery brown color. So we start with what it is mostly, lavender. Get it the right value, which is not a pure 9. And then the third one is we're going to adjust the intensity and temperature with a little bit of red and yellow, some orange here That's too green. If it's too green, add red. Here we go. Here's a beautiful lavendery brown. I want it just a slight, it's way too brown. Oh no. Oh no. Just slightly more lavender. Here we go. In that shadow. And I'm using some strokes that are horizontal as well as vertical, because it's going to add a feeling of thickness to this, of depth. And this part of the tree is close to us, even though it's high on the page, because it's not on this retreating plane here. So these ones I want thicker to help me with that portrayal of the closeness of the tree. Now, it's a little bit darker in here too. Add some darker moments just off to the sides here for a little bit of sense of penetrating light into some of these areas. I have a bit of warmth on my color shaper, just some of this warm, dark magenta bouncing up into some of these branches. That'll give a 3D sense as well. And then some of this orange, I'm going to bring down negative shapes. Get rid of that blob. And put some shapes up in here. This branch is way too thick, so we'll just thin it out a bit. Some of my orange and some of my deep red orange in here. Some of this darker green, orange, greeny orange. I love that color. More orange. I want it to be a duller green. There we go, a little bit of red. That really helps in here, in this shadow in the greens. Drag it across the texture I've created. Now I'm creating some textural interest, that things that I really like. And it's not the same as other people might paint this painting, but I'm just trying to follow my own ideas, things that I like. And the risk of that is that it might not come out as good as if I copied someone else and someone else's really great ideas, but it's always a good idea in art, in painting, to follow your good ideas, to follow your ideas and see if they're good. If you get in the habit of neglecting your ideas, if you start telling your ideas they're no good right from the start, they're going to stop. Your good ideas will just kind of give up, and your creative ideas will fall in the background. Creativity is like a little muscle that you use. You have to work that muscle and create. The more you give honor to your creative ideas, the more creative ideas you have. The more you ignore your creative ideas, the more they shrink to the background. So, here's my idea. Even if you're wrong, even if the ideas turn out to be not the greatest, it's always good to try them out. We risk a piece of canvas, perhaps. Maybe we risk some time, but that's not a risk because the time spent is time learning. All this time we spend trying things out is time we've spent learning something new. And to me, that's win. Right now I'm trying to learn a foreign language, and I'm not naturally gifted at that. I'm not very good at it. And yet I go at it every day, 20 minutes to half an hour every day. And the reason I do, and I know I'd get better if I spent more time, but that's the time I have. But the reason I do it, even though I'm not good at it and I fail a lot and come up with the wrong words and the wrong phrases in the wrong order, is that at some point I'll be as good at it as I'm going to be. At some point I will find out where my limits are, and I will know a language. And it's so good for my brain to do that. I'm all for helping my brain do things. Try new challenges. Here, what I'm doing is I'm looking at my photo reference for ideas, for thoughts here, and trying to get these thoughts on my canvas. As I keep trying, as I keep working towards a conclusion here, I'm realizing how beautiful the color wheel has worked out on this palette of colors. I'm realizing just how lovely this is. So simple. The palette of colors is so simple, and it's really making me happy to know that I can easily jump in here and find colors that I need to make this interesting, make this painting good, or as good as I can make it. Good meaning, when I say the word good, I mean that I have taken my ideas and fleshed them out as far as I can go, and that I am satisfied with the results. I don't have to be ecstatic about the results. I just need to be satisfied to say I did the best I could in this situation. I will do better next time, but this was how far I could take this painting. And I'm happy. Usually that doesn't happen in a demo because I always feel like I needed more time. I'll use a brush on that. Lighter up here, lighter through here. I'm going to bring some more of that sky through in just a minute. There's lots of little peek holes and opportunities for light popping through. And I want to give this painting those opportunities. Some really light yellows that pop through, giving it a little bit of sparkle. And I'm also looking for weird edges, places like this where the edge doesn't help the image. Places where I have too big a contrast in these greens, for instance, breaks that tree branch apart and makes it unreadable. I'm taking my number 4 flat and I'm gonna go over this spot again where the light is coming through. I really want to give it some glow here. So what I'm doing is encasing it in this red and orange glow, and we'll see how that works. Before I put that really light strip on. The other thing is this mess right here. Too much paint on there in the wrong color. It's a little dark back here. There's some super light color. I added an extra little tree over here. There's some light coming up the side of it. And the tree is, I think, a birch, and it's glowing with this pinkish light, just like the garage is. Got some mess on here. I'll take care of that. And the front of this door is pretty boring. So I'm just going to crack it open a little bit. Let you see inside. Or not see inside, but see that the door is cracked open just by adding some shadow in there. Give a little bit of mystery back there. I'm trying to find ways to brighten up the door and create contrast that'll just sort of look like the door's cracked open a bit, just to give a tiny little idea of depth inside the building and something else you might see if you were sneaky. You wanted to come up there and peek inside, or just a little moment of an invitation. A little bit of a hard edge for one thing. Now that added something interesting, like what's going on? What am I seeing into? It's a tiny little bit of, maybe I could peek inside. maybe I could just peek inside and see what's going on in there, see what's happening. It gives a little bit of a visual treat. Just a little. Now I'm going to go after some of this area. And I'm so glad my mixtures are still mixed up. This small brush should be just the thing. And the phthalo the phthalo blue-green shade works really, really nicely for these delicate sky. The way the sky just looks so tender and full of mist. Letting these leaves dangle down, and I'm not afraid of it mixing here, because that's just looking like leaves in the background, leaves that aren't quite as close up. There's a trick to these sky holes, which is not putting in too many. And that is a downfall of mine, getting too many in there. And the reason is because then it just looks like someone came and took buckshot to your painting and just shot it full of holes. And that's sort of not a good look. If you look at the painting and it looks like there's holes punched everywhere, there may be too many sky holes. What I'm trying to do is find that lacy edge, just where the leaves kind of are dissolving into the sky, and up here where the leaves are overlapping. This branch I'd like to define a little bit better. What's that? This one I want to come up rather than go out. Just a thin little branch going out. Thin it down. Bright yellow, like right out of the tube yellow in some spots. I think this bright yellow, there's some sky holes behind this red tree in bright yellow, but again, punch too many holes through and it'll look like Swiss cheese instead of a tree. Make sure I leave edges of that tree. Tree trunks that come up and dissolve into the foliage. This is really goopy and messy right now, and I want to let it dry a bit so I can simplify. Some of this stuff I need to make up because I moved the tree over just a hair. And I'm kind of just working my way around the painting, stepping back and looking at it as a whole and asking myself what it might need next. Little details that add to the beauty of the whole painting. I love this image and I would love to do a great job painting it. It would make me so happy to do a great job painting this. That tree needs to go. Or maybe it's this tree. Needs to be smaller and thinner. I'll get some little branches in there. Oh, that little accident just made a tree right there. Okay, well, here we go. We'll put it in. Little thinner branches coming up. And not everything the same. Here we go. I'm going back and forth between ideas, overlapping and then negative shape painting, overlap, negative shape paint. And I don't know if that's the best way to do a thing, but it's the way I'm choosing to do it today. I might have had a better idea for this years ago and then forgotten. So we'll just see how it ends up looking today. A couple little sparks of light. I'm sort of loving these little sparkles of light coming through the trees. That one needs to be lighter. And dissolving these treetops up into the mist. It feels very misty out there, and those treetops kind of just disappear up into it, and I am loving that. This one's too big and hard-edged. It looks like a blob, so I'm just pulling it back a little bit. Now, a little bit of light in those light splotches. More yellow. Brighter yellow. Brighter yellowy white in those light splotches. Now once again, I've made them all the same width apart. No matter how much I think about not making them the same width apart, sometimes my little fence post maker in my hand just does that. So we'll get a few others in here that are not. Where I scraped up my paint before with the edge of my tool now has a nice textural surface that is fun to put paint over. Here's that purple color. Oops, I need it a little bit darker. It's so nice to know how I made these colors, that I don't have 12 different pigments to choose from to try to figure out the perfect purple color that I made. And I'm making it a little bit darker down here in the foreground. Hopefully that'll help draw the viewer up and in, making the shadow just a little bit lighter as we go up. A little bit darker as we come forward here. Shadows make lights look lighter. Shadows make your lights, because we only have white paint, we don't have sunlight and electric light lighting up our paintings. We have to really work those values, get our darks working so that the lights really look, by contrast, a whole lot lighter. And that was the thought there. Dark paint makes light paint look lighter. getting some texture on here, and then I want to get some of these, the texture of fallen leaves, the texture of some light. I don't think I have to be following the photo exactly for where the leaves go or the light hits, because that changes minute by minute. This should be dark, even if it's leaves coming over there in shadow. That little tree trunk shouldn't just end in nothing. It gets buried and swallowed up into the leaves. I always think that my finishing a painting is boring people to death, but I kind of still think you need to see how I think about it, how I do it. It's not how everybody finishes a painting, and each artist has their own way, their own viewpoint, their own unique take on how a painting might be finished. And so I think it would be important for everyone to just watch artists as they struggle their way through and figure out how their painting finishes, how it ends. What's the end of my story here? My story is about shadow and light on a fall day. And someone else's might be a completely, entirely different take on this. You might want to expand the path and just make it be about this path in the shadow and light. It doesn't have to, your idea doesn't have to match up with my idea. You just need to flesh it out. Make it happen. Let people see what you're thinking. And if that didn't work out the first time, try it again and again till it works. That's too light. I want some areas back here where the sunlight's coming through that yellow. Then I'll put on a couple of ideas about branches, not huge branches, just a few ideas about them. There seems to be a weird aura right here that I want to break into. There we go. Make it not quite such a circle around the... These dark leaves are right up in here, and I really like them. And then the daylight pops through in a few more little places. Bringing some sky down through here. Kind of feel like we're lifting the eyes upward. And even though this is our sort of focal point stopping place, it isn't the only place I want you to stop. I want you to continue around the painting, looking at different parts that I put together here. I would love for you to stop and enjoy certain stopping points along the way in this painting. And so I pull the eye up and around. Now I have a little extra phthalo blue-green shade. I'm going to put that in, and it's not too messed up. I'm going to put that back in my box, in my paint box. This is probably messed up, as is this. I'll just mix these together into a new orange for a new painting later on. Because I don't want to waste the paint. And yet I needed a lot of paint here because I love this texture, and I wanted this texture, and I didn't want to have to keep coming back to open my paint jars again over and over. So I put enough paint out there to really make sure that I didn't have to go back and keep reloading paint. I did once, and that was fine. I'm loving these textures, but I am going to stop. We can see my beautiful color wheel, how it made the harmony here. We can see the blues. There's deep blues and deep reds in these tree trunks. Not just brown. Deep blues and deep purples and deep reds in here. Put a little more red in this one. Because I see them turning in space. They need a little bit more, too much, a little bit more reflected light. And in that way, we can see that the light is bouncing around. Ooh, now I'm making a mess. We can get a feel for how the light is bouncing when we see reflected light in things. But I don't want there to be too many hard edges over here. Just a few to talk about the day. I want to retain the hardest edges here, and then have a few lines that draw the eye. Finish. So the painting is mostly composed of the orange made from this sterilized yellow. The next biggest color is this blue violet. So we have kind of an orange blue violet feel to the painting. And I do like that. Now see, I just sprayed that with spray paint. It looks like I just put a bunch of paint on my painting instead of it looking like sky holes. Too many sky holes. It's like too many cooks. Spoils the broth. There we go. Pulled them back a little bit. Too many. Well, this is as much as I'm going for today. I feel like if there's more to say, I will understand that tomorrow. Just put in a few more. I'm not making leaves. I'm indicating the color of what I see here. And this movement of this color, drawing the eye up, is something I'm interested in more than making leaves. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. And I will show you if there are any changes. Here we go. I'll show you if there's any changes. Hopefully not, and hopefully I don't wreck it in the next 30 seconds because I'm being silly. Done. Okay, stop it. That's it. I really hope you had fun learning about the colors of fall and how you can easily put together a beautiful palette for a fall scene. Here's the finished painting. I was amazed at the variety of yellows and oranges and greens and violets that I could get from that simple triad of 3 colors. A good experiment would be to try out a different triad and see what the painting looks like as well. Even if you just did a small study, it might be really fun to follow up on this and see what the 3 muted colors would look like, or the 3 spring colors. You never know. It might be a whole lot of fun. Anyway, I really enjoyed doing this. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's do this again next month.
All right. Great job, Dianna. Thank you so much for putting that together for everyone.
That was so much fun. I really had a great time doing this painting, and I'm grateful to everyone to holding with me while I put on the teeniest little dabs at the end.
Yeah, it turned out great.
Thank you.
Turned out awesome. So we're gonna give a few minutes for Q&A. I know Dianna was in the chat answering questions throughout the event.
Crazy.
Yeah. So if there are any other questions that didn't get answered, you'd like to ask Dianna, go ahead and definitely shoot those out there for us. Lots of thank yous in the chat. Thank you, Dianna. Thanks, Dianna. You make me want to try Color Shaper. Thank you. Such fun colors. Where do we download the reference photo? You download the reference photo in the membership on the website. Inside the Ultimate membership, you should have gotten an email with a link to that. What color is similar to dyed yellow?
I saw someone say Hansa Yellow Deep or Cadmium Yellow Deep, that deep orangey yellow. And if you just can't afford it, take your lighter yellow and add a tiny touch of red to it. It's just a more orangey yellow. I love the richness of that Dyed, and it just makes such beautiful, rich greens and stuff. So that's my reason for using it.
Awesome. What size canvas is your painting?
16 high and 12 wide.
Awesome.
That's the size that fits on under my camera.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So at some point I'll figure out how to do a bigger canvases. But that's what fits right now.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that we do because, for lesson reasons, for recording them on the camera and stuff like that. So
yeah, there is. I used to paint huge paintings, but then there's also the storage and transportation issue. So these 12 by 16s are a really nice size to work on.
Awesome. Rebecca asks, do you have a blank chart you can send out so we can do our own green study?
I have one in my files, and I'll try to remember to give it to Peter or his wife Janelle so they can put it up on that lesson.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do so that you can have it. And it just shows you where to put things. But my chart is on an 18 by 24 inch panel, so I can really see the colors. If you do it little, like on my 8.5 by 11, it's going to be too small to see.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, we'll try to get that up in the lesson for you guys. Carol, what type of tabletop easel do you use?
I'm using a slant board for my camera, but I don't have a tabletop easel. I have a freestanding easel. For my, when I paint, I like to have it upright and to stand. And so my slanting board is just something I built so that the camera can sort of come over my shoulder and look at the painting. But I don't like, actually, when I do my own paintings, to paint it aslant because it skews the perspective. I like things upright.
Do you regularly use a sketchbook for practice?
I use some canvas. There's like a little canvas paper pad, a Frederick's canvas paper pad that I practice on. I do like to make sketches, and they'll often be on canvas paper, but when I travel, I carry a sketchbook with me And I use it a lot.
Awesome. Is the primary magenta a PV19 pigment?
Yes.
Perfect. It looked vertical in the video and behind you is now horizontal. Which way did you paint it? It is vertical.
It's vertical. That it's just
Yeah.
the skew of the camera. You can see it's vertical. It's funny how the camera skews it though to make it look square.
Yeah, when it's at an angle. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird.
Okay, what is the difference between CAD yellow light and diarlight?
Okay. There's a little bit of difference. I think cad yellow deep cadmium colors are always really strongly pigmented and they're a little more opaque. Diarlight is a little bit more transparent, which I kind of like for mixing greens. Years ago, I selected Hansa Yellow Opaque and Diarlight Yellow because when I went to the art store and looked at cadmium yellow medium hue, which had no cadmium in it, it was made from Hansa Yellow and Diarlight Yellow mixed together. And so those three, when I mix those two together, they make a cadmium yellow medium. When I use them separately, like cadmium yellow light hue is just Hansa Yellow light. Cadmium yellow deep hue is Diarlight yellow. So I just took those ingredients and mixed my own cadmium free paints without having to buy extra cadmium free paints.
Gotcha.
But I do have cadmiums on my in my thing now because they've made them less toxic. Before they were highly toxic, so I didn't want any cadmiums on my palette at all. But now I have them.
Do you always paint from a reference photo or do you ever paint from your memory?
I have lots of paintings from my memory. Yeah. Memory is such a wonderful tool. I use reference photos to teach myself specific tools and specific like edges and forms and things, but we all need to, as artists, let our memories inform us as we paint, because that's part of who we are and part of our contribution to the creative force that's running through us. We have that memory for a reason, and we store beautiful images in there.
So true. So true. Do you use the small stay wet palette when doing plein air?
I just bought one. I had my large one and it kept falling off my plein air easel the other day and making a mess. So I just said, forget this. And I went to the store, bought a little one, and I haven't used it yet. But I've always, like for 35 years, used the big one. And for 35 years, I've struggled with it.
Yeah, it's difficult to take that thing out for
Right.
painting. It's hard.
It is. It is.
Do you varnish when done? And if so, do you use glossy, satin, or matte?
I do varnish, and I love a satin varnish. It makes the painting real glowy without being the shiny. We have our homes, we really value natural light in the Pacific Northwest. And when sunlight hits them, they just, you can't see the painting if they're shiny. And then matte, I just think they're kind of meh, but satin is beautiful and glowy. So that's it. That's my reason.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question. Would it be best to paint in oils if only struggling with dollar store acrylics until I can purchase acrylics?
Sharon, if you normally paint with oils, just paint with oils until you can get decent acrylics. I have tried those dollar store acrylics with my grandkids, and I just gave up on them, threw them away, and give them my good paints. Because
yeah.
You remember those little pianos we had as kids, those little toy pianos, and they went ding, 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 ding. Yep. That's what those dollar store paints remind me of, is you can't make good music from them. They don't work. Yeah. So use your beautiful oil paints until you can afford some acrylics. Save eat beans for a while, save some money.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do.
For real.
I know they're expensive, and it is a big cost. And So, just buy a few good ones at a time. They keep, they won't go bad if you
Yeah.
just slowly grow a collection of good acrylic paints.
Yeah. How do you store the paints, in a toolbox or a fishing box?
I have a watertight, airtight fishing tackle box that I scrape my excess paints into. And I especially take that when I'm out painting en plein air, because I don't want to take a 25-pound bag of tubes. It's just a little box that has a selection of my paints in it. And I also seal that up in a Ziploc bag, though, because that little box can contain $200 worth of paint and you don't want it to dry out. So I make sure to put a little wet paper towel in one of the empty sections, and make sure I put it in a Ziploc bag so nothing dries out in there.
Is there a particular brand of, satin varnish you like?
Well, I'm sorry to say that I loved Cheap Joe's very good satin varnish, and Cheap Joe's went out of business. And so I'm I know. And I tried to order up a whole bunch at the end, and they had run out already. So I'm using up my last 3 bottles. And when it's gone, I've got a bottle of Liquitex satin. Golden stopped making satin varnish, but I think you could mix their matte and their gloss together. So here's my, when I figure this out, I will let you know.
Yes. Sounds great.
Yeah, right.
People are asking where you get that airtight tackle box. Definitely feel free to chip in. You can probably find one online pretty easily.
Yeah.
If you can't find one locally.
I got mine in the fishing department at Fred Meyer, which is like one of those big department stores that has everything, food and shoes and electronics and fishing tackle stuff. But I also found a really good one at the dollar store. So, just keep your eyes peeled, look around and see what's out there.
Yeah. This is interesting. When flying, how can I determine if my oil paint is not flammable and allowed? I realize that acrylics are good to go, but what about oil?
Look up whatever brand of oil you're using. They normally have a website, and on that website, they will give you a spec page that you can download and print up, and it will give the specs of that particular oil. Most oil paints are not flammable. It's the paint thinners and the terps and whatever. So leave the terps out of your suitcase, but print up that page, that spec page, because it will tell the TSA agents that your paint isn't flammable. And I put it right in my paint box. I tape it right on top. I do the same thing with acrylics because TSA agents don't understand paint. They're made to see bombs, not paint. And so if they are reassured with an official looking spec page that you printed up, they won't open up all your tubes and squirt paint out and then make you miss your flight.
There you
or
go.
throw your stuff away.
Yeah.
But almost every website has that. You just have to look around for it.
Would it be advisable to paint the sky darker since it is a warm color picture?
You could do that. I liked the delicate color, but in your painting, you can do whatever you want. Like,
yes,
if this was taken on Prince Edward Island, where the sky always looks a little bit like it has rainbows in it. It's so delicate. But if you're in Colorado, that sky would be like deep, deep, deep blue. So you get to choose the color of your sky. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Any more questions? We'll give it a little bit, see if any others come through. Otherwise, I think we'll wrap it up, guys.
Yeah, it's lunchtime for us.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Yeah, thank you guys for joining us today. We will you can find the reference photo inside the Ultimate membership, and we will try to get that template color chart available for you as soon as
Yeah.
you can. And I also saw Colleen have a suggestion for maybe finding some way to include some of the handouts and stuff like that in your slides. So we'll look into that. Thank you guys so much for little ideas like that. We really want to make this the best, coolest, most easiest to use, product that it can be. So thank you guys for that. Colleen says, thank you both. So great to see you again after my few months break. Missed you both.
Thanks, Colleen.
Yeah, we're glad you're back for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I add one more little thing?
Yeah, please do.
Someone was saying earlier that they hadn't painted in a while, but they just hadn't had the mojo or whatever to paint. And I remembered a quote, or it's a theme. I don't have the actual quote, from Clarissa Pinkola Estese's book on your creative spirit, which was every creative person has to experience a winter in their creativity. You grow, you mature, your fruit ripens, and then you have a winter where you feel like nothing will ever grow again, like you're lost, like you don't have any creativity left, but your seeds of creativity are hiding beneath the snow, germinating slowly, waiting for things to warm up. And spring will come, and your creativity will come back, flourish for another creative season. And it's the seasons of the creative spirit. It's normal, it's natural, it's nothing to be afraid of. Just feel the warming of the temperature in your soul, and follow it, and just see if those little germs of creativity are starting to grow. You can nurture that, and everything is good. If you have to take a break, if you're sick, if your family is calling, just let that be a rest time for your creative spirit, and know that it will come back thriving and, and intense as ever in a little while.
Yeah, that's awesome, Dianna. Thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome. And we love you. We believe in you.
We
believe
do.
in your creative spirit, and we really want to help you on your journey.
Yeah, we really do. Thank you, guys. We love you. And to those of you who are brand new to the membership, just want to say again, thank you for joining us. Welcome. We really hope that this becomes a place where you can grow and flourish and make strides like you've never seen before in your creative journey. So anyway, bye, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you in a week. So
Bye.
Bye.